That is the knowledge they don't want you to have.
Education is more than reading, more than writing, is more than math. It should first of all teach our children who they are. You see, if you don't know who you are, then you will not know what to do with your life.
Yeah.
And if you don't know what to do with it, then you won't know how to achieve your goals. So Alex Haley raised the question of who am I? And he asked his mother, father, aunts, and his uncles who he was. Some people told Alex they were Negro. Some told Haley they were colored. Others told Alex they were black. Some said they were Afro-American. Some told Alex they were African. And lastly, some said American. Now, we have the only children and some adults that give 6 different answers to a very simple question like, who am I? Again, you cannot teach a child that is, first of all, not know who he is. It's more important than reading, math, and science. So we began to ask ourselves, why do Germans call themselves Germans? Why do Chinese call themselves Chinese? And we were told there's a land called Germany. There's a land called China. So let's go back to a world map. Germans are Germans, land called Germany. Chinese are Chinese, land called China. Let's go to a world map. Is there a place in the world called Negro land? What about color land? What about black land? What about Afro-American land? There's only 2 answers left, Africa and America. But be honest, what comes to most of our children's mind when they hear the word Africa? Tarzan? Running around, no clothes on? Be honest. And what about America? Red, white, and blue and apple pie? That's because of this word right here, which is nothing but his story. You didn't know that? It's all history is. It's somebody's story. You know what I'm talking about. Columbus didn't discover America. He was lost. And the end discovered him. And Abraham Lincoln didn't free any slaves. Or another way to look at it, my story is very, very close to the word mystery. And I want to clear up a couple of mysteries right now. The book is titled Great People, Past and Present. What happened to a people that built the pyramids and yet now live in projects? What happened? What happened to a people that are the first to read and write using a term called hieroglyphics, and yet now can no longer read or write? In essence, what happened to a people in terms of Egypt? It's amazing. King Tut came to America, and we didn't realize that King Tut was one of us. Somebody mysteriously took Egypt out of Africa and placed it in the Middle East. Now, how do you take a country out of a continent and then call it something else? As a result, we didn't realize that Egypt is in Africa. Egyptians are Africans, and we were the ones that built those pyramids. But my new history book, Lessons from History, Celebration in Blackness, for elementary, and there's also one for high school. You see, we are concerned about some issues here. The first one being, where do you start? You see, we have found that many black youth are embarrassed talking about the history. The Jews, now about the Holocaust, but us about slavery. I think one reason is where you start. The law says where you start will determine where you end up. Now, where do you want to start our children? If they started in 1619, they start on a plantation. That means they'll probably end up in a ghetto. But if you start 4 million years ago on a pyramid, they end up being free. Now, where do you want to start? On a plantation or on a pyramid? Because depending upon where you start will determine where they end up. Our first problem is we've been starting in the wrong place. And you cannot discuss 4 million years in 28 days.
Of course.
Black History Month. Now, I'm glad we got the month. It used to be a week. But you can't discuss 4 million years in 28 days. It's simply not enough time. And then the other issue, what are we going to discuss? You see, if all we're going to discuss are names and dates and events, then you can do that in about 28 days. When was King born? 29. When did he go to DC? 63. When did he get the Nobel Prize? 64. When did he die? 68. That would never change. But if you want to make it relevant, you connect the past with the present and with the future. In other words, what were our mistakes? Because the mistakes you want to avoid, and the strengths you want to reinforce. I'll say it clearly. Those that don't know their history, don't know their mistakes, are destined to repeat it over and over and over and over again. Our children need to know their story, and it did not start here.